In a moment of truth, I can see what I am, like a mist on the bay that is here and is gone, or a dream that awakes with the coming of dawn. So am I can feel something more, stirring deep in my soul, a burning for things I neglected so long, a yearning to sing the rest of the unfinished song of my life. And the man that I was cast upon the fury of the sea. Let the wind and the waves wash away the fool I used to be. And I won't be ashamed to stand and proclaim I am free. I am free. And I know in my soul it was not in me to change, but God in His mercy has called me by name. He's lifted me out of the pit of my shame and ordained I should live. And the man that I was cast upon the fury of the sea. Let the wind and the waves wash away the fool I used to be. And I won't be ashamed to stand and proclaim I am free. I am free. And I never can repay what the Lord forgave this day. He came for me. He came to set me free.
Hi, I'm Erin Mackey, and I play Mary Catlett in the show, which Vince just sang a song that's John Newton's song. He's the kind of the main person we follow throughout the story, and Mary Catlett was the love of his life, his childhood love. And the song Vince just sang is really a moment in John's life where he finally kind of sees the wrongdoing he's been how he's been living his life has been really bad. And Mary, and she was a real person. All these people, they were really alive, and she always believed in him. She believed that he could change. She just believed that there was more in him than what he was doing with his life, and that there was so much good in him still. So this song I'm going to sing is called I Still Believe. I believe that the child that I once knew is still alive inside you, if you could only see. And I believe that you have not been forsaken, and this journey you have taken can somehow set you free. For you could cross 1,000 miles to hide yourself from him, make 1,000 foolish choices that you tell yourself he never can forgive. But God is waiting for you just to let him in. Don't turn away. Don't be afraid of what you'll see. For all the things you once believed or thought you'd heard before All those words of hope your mother spoke will make a sound your spirit can't ignore. Then through the tears of laughter you will long for more. Then you will see what joy can be. My oldest friend, you should know I still believe.
Hello there. My name is Laiona Michelle. I'm so happy to be here. I play the role of Nana, a house slave from Sierra Leone, and I'm going to sing for you a song called Daybreak. It's a song that encourages Mary to find the light within herself in order to be the voice of the abolitionist movement. When daybreak is only a heartbeat away, with barely a moment till dawn, the mist-covered trees are shrouded in gray as the earth introduces its song. As the birds start to sing a hymn, praising darkness, yielding to light, and a new day slowly begins. Soon the sun is shining bright. Let it shine on all the world. The darkness will give way to day, and it's time, I know it's time. These fears that have shaken our faith fade away. But the forest has creatures that fear the light, and they hide in their burrows and wait for night. But you are not one of them. You are a child of the light. So shine on all the world. The darkness will give way to day, and it's time. It must be time. These fears that have shaken our faith fade away.
Good afternoon. The hits keep coming. My name is Charles E. Wallace, and this particular song takes place in the second act of the show, where Thomas, John Newton's manservant, slave, has just been betrayed by him. And this is the answer to that betrayal. I give you nowhere left to run. You excuse the things you do because of what was done to you, and this bitterness is haunting your heart. You say you have no question, but you know that isn't true. One day guilt will tear your soul apart. So you close your eyes, drink from your flask to forget all the evil things you've done. I have only one last question now. Where will you go when there's nowhere else to run? You know many a man has come before you, many a man has passed, and the world keeps on turning just the same. But you waste your life chasing after things that just won't last, and none of them can ever heal your shame. Because sin is only good for a season, as a companion on this lonely road you trudge. Yes, but one day you must stand and give a reason, because no one's ever leaving here unjudged. You know no one's ever leaving here unjudged. So there's only one real question now, before your time on this troubled earth is done. When they lay your body in the ground, where will you go when there's nowhere left to run? Where will you go when there's nowhere left to run?
This one up? Okay. Yep. This next song actually happens earlier in the show. Again, my character, Mary Catlett, she is becoming aware of the reality of slavery and the horrible abuse of these people and oppression of these people, and she is starting to ask questions. It takes place in 1744 England, so this is very early on in England's move toward abolition, and she meets some people in her town who are fighting against this injustice, and they're trying to get her on board for this song called We Are Determined.
It begins in the dark, whispering voices strike a spark, which becomes a flame of a change, of a turning of the future. Search deep inside for the courage to decide, is this worth when they breathe free. Someday we will discover what we can become. When at last we atone for these things we have done, for daring that moment our own chains will fall. When we heed this call, we will heed this
Why do you feel like nobody has, at least personally, I feel like a lot of people have not heard of John Newton? Like he is the author of one of the songs that is sung everywhere. Everyone knows Amazing Grace. So hi.
You know, when I first was introduced to this property, I was mortified, embarrassed. I mean, I considered myself well-read, and I couldn't believe I didn't know this story. I mean, he's more important than Abraham Lincoln,
Right.
Martin Luther King, on and on and on. I mean, he is the man who began the abolitionist movement.
Right.
And, you know, I guess 200 years from now, we're probably not going to remember a lot of people, but we're really thrilled to be bringing him into the forefront of the culture and into the Broadway community.
Well, why do you think that is that, I mean, in America, we're taught specifically the history of America, which is just Abraham Lincoln, pretty much. Like, after I saw the show last week, and it was phenomenal. And I went home and I immediately started researching all about John Newton and about the British side of all this. And I was like, oh, I thought America did all this. But, like,
Well, we were British.
right, well, we were British. Right, so, like, how much did you guys individually learn about this once you started with the organization, with the show?
Well, for me, I just started with the show last year. Some people have been with it much longer than that. But I auditioned for the show, and I didn't know anything about John Newton. I read the script, and I was like, oh, wow, they really made a really cool, dramatic story. This can't possibly be true, and it's real. I was like, this is stranger than fiction. I spoke to the director on the phone, and I remember asking him, how much of this is true? And he's like, I was like, there's this character, this princess character. I was like, oh, she's made up. No, she's not. She's real. Like, I was like, wow, I couldn't believe just how incredible, truly, stranger than fiction his life is. I mean, he was a slave trader who was then enslaved and then became a leader of the abolitionist movement.
And branded a slave.
And branded, yeah. I mean, it's just incredible. So I knew nothing, and then I've learned.
And being with the show since 2009 when we did the first reading, and when we had our first production at Goodspeed in 2012, the director gave each of us an assignment, basically that had something to do with that period. So once you've done that research, and you're like, wow, all of this is happening. So that's how, we a lot of us have come to know that period and John Newton.
Right. And our story takes place in so many different places in the world. It takes place in Sierra Leone, it takes place in Barbados and England. So the research we did was quite extensive.
Well, what was the audition process like? You mentioned that you just came in blind, right? The basic, pretty much.
Well, my story's kind of strange because this isn't how it normally goes. I mean, I've auditioned and I've been in many shows, and you usually have to go several times. This one I think really was just meant to be. I was out of town doing a show, and I was in California. I couldn't be there for the audition, so I put myself on tape, which I think you did too, right? Yeah. Yeah, I videoed myself singing some songs and doing some scenes, and I know they had been looking for a long time, and they were pretty...
I remember Pat McCorkle, the casting agent, calling me and saying, well, Erin Mackey can't come in, you're going to have to audition her on tape. And I said, there is no way.
I said, no.
I'm hiring the lead actress in our musical off of a tape.
and here she sits. Here she sits.
I watched the first 15 seconds of her audition on tape, and I was
done.
Oh my God.
Hiring
Thank you.
actors
Off of a tape.
Totally true.
Yeah.
That's totally true.
And then I spoke to the director on the phone, and that sort of just sealed it all, and I came on board. So that was my experience.
But Laiona, you've been with us since the beginning too.
Yeah, it's been 6 years. from the very first reading. And before then, I was doing just a lot of new plays, a lot of new workshops, many of which continued without me because that's just how the business goes. And but this one really fell in my lap, and it was like a blessing to walk in the room, to not know anything about this story of Amazing Grace, and to just go in there. And it was a monologue, I believe, at the time. Yeah. And then the role grew into a principal role with a beautiful song. How lucky am I to get to sing such wonderful material like
I just get
Daybreak.
to listen to it on stage every night.
That was amazing.
Really nice.
Yeah. Yeah, that was one of the two parts where I cried when you did your number. I was like, I mean,
What was the other part?
I'm not gonna give it away. I don't want.
It's a bring your tissue.
How about the end of the first act?
It was
Was that amazing?
Yes. Yes.
Not
yes,
telling them.
Yes.
Yeah, the end
Go
of the
see
first
it.
act.
Our set designer, Eugene Lee, one of the prolific set designers in this country, wicked, on and on and on. He created something at the end of the act that you will not see anywhere else.
Oh my goodness.
Anywhere else.
That was amazing. So going back like 6 years though, both of you, Charles and Laiona, you guys have been with it since what initial, like you got a script and
Since the
I
first
wouldn't call it a script. We had a couple of ideas.
Carolyn, you were involved. You were
Yeah,
with it the whole way too, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
What was your question?
I was gonna ask Carolyn what an executive producer does, but
I mean, first you have to find the material you want to work on, and then you have to raise the money.
oh,
It's a very expensive show. I'm sure
I
you could
bet.
see that.
I bet,
There's
yeah.
30-something people on it. It's a very, very
the
expensive
Nederlander's
show.
not cheap real
Not
estate
cheap
either.
real
Yeah. Yeah.
So you have to find the property, you have to develop the property, you've got to go and try it out a few places. We went to Goodspeed Opera House, then we went to Chicago to the Bank of America Theater, and then we came and waited for a theater in New York. And in the meantime, you have to, keep raising money. And we were fortunate enough to have raised enough to open on Broadway. So, the next step for this is hopefully to have a long run.
So what happens though? Like, do you get to a point where you're like, oh, we're this close to Broadway, and then you just don't get money and it just goes away?
Lots of shows, most shows.
Wow.
Yeah, that happens to most.
You've probably been involved in lots of those. Yeah.
It's not only just the money; it's the actual
property.
space. Yeah.
Right.
We were waiting around for a theater for the longest time. People are like, well, I don't know about this show. I don't know about this. Everyone's like, well, they think they want the next biggest thing, and they're willing to do whatever. Or there's months in advance where people have already had theaters booked. So we were just kind of like, when is it?
If you have a show that was a movie, you're in better shape than
Newsies?
in a show. Well, Newsies happen to be wonderful.
It was
But I mean,
very
it's
good.
just there's so many movie musicals now. People think, oh, well, you've got a built-in audience. But in our show, you actually don't know how it's going to end when you walk in the door.
Right.
So you're like this, and you're really engaged because you don't know how it's going to end. And
Yeah,
I think that's more interesting.
Yeah, it's what people who I've had come see the show are just they just don't know what's going to happen, and that's fascinating. It's just kind of becoming rarer.
Yes.
On the Broadway stage to see something that is truly unknown.
Original, yes.
Well, this is totally original, and the music it's got that classic feel. It's got that Les Mis feel, for lack of anything else. And is that something personally that drew you guys to the show, or was it a conscious decision from the writer and the composer to make it sound a little bit older, because it's set in 1744, right?
Well, the first thing that I heard was a website. I went to a concert in the basement of the Empire State Building, and there were like about 10 songs, and I think only a couple of them are still in the show. But the 3 that I fell in love with, I went back to my office because I've been producing theater for a long time, and I got on the website and I sent them to 3 friends who were dead hard commercial theater people, and I said, what do you think of these songs? And they emailed me back, goosebumps. Because I had goosebumps. And I was like, okay, so I think we've got the beginnings of something really great here. When a piece of music can move you that way.
Yeah. I'm still singing the finale, the song you guys sang in my head. Yeah.
We do sing Amazing Grace in the show.
Yeah. And it is phenomenal. Great arrangement.
Yeah.
So what has changed? You said that songs have been dropped. Have your character? All right, no, it was the character of Nana was not a principal character at first. How has the show grown? What's different?
Let's see. It's grown so much. I will say this, that, we say all the time that theater is a collaborative art, and it really, really, really is. This room, just from the rehearsal process, has been so open. We have been in a room where the writers were able to let the artists, the actors, play so much and improv and help flesh out the scenes and inspire the dialogue. And I have never had an experience like that. All the way up to previews, we've had maybe about 20 pages per day of just massive changes, and they have really just been open to us and the entire process. Yeah, so a tremendous amount has changed.
Even just from Chicago to here, which was only a matter of, what was it, 6 months? And a lot of the show did change. We learned a lot in Chicago, learned about the structure of it and how the audience follows it. And I think all the characters were deepened in terms of the the backstories. And
the thing about a musical, on any musical that you work on, and I've worked on a lot of musicals, the composer ends up with a trunk full of songs that he's thrown out. And they become the inspiration for the next work. Because we've probably thrown out 8 to 10, 12 songs in the process. And great songs.
Wow.
They
There's like
just
30 in the show already, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's...
Oh, yeah. But we've replaced some, there were a couple of songs that the sailors sang. We were like, those sailors wouldn't sing those songs. And the Heart.
In the Navy.
A bar song. We had songs in a bar. They're all gone.
Yeah.
But they're going to be in his next show, I'm sure.
The song about sailors in a bar. I'll go see that.
That's the next musical.
So the show set in 1744 at the height of the British slave trade, and of course, like, the two main topics of the show, in case you guys didn't pick up on it, are slavery and racism, which are two very big topics still today that people are uncomfortable talking about. I mean, going into the readings and the rehearsals, I guess you as a producer or you guys as actors, were any of you worried about any backlash or anything negative that may come out of it from an audience perspective?
I think our job as actors is to tell the story to its most, to the umpteenth version of truth. And if that is a hot button thing for some people, our job is to tell it with the most truth possible. And if that is uncomfortable for some people, that's fine. That's the reason that we do things. That's art. Yeah, and the reason why I create. And if you could move some people to feel some things, that is the reason we do this. So yes, it's uncomfortable, and racism and is obviously very prevalent today with what's been happening. But that's our job, to move people to feel things, to inspire conversations like this one.
And during the process, while working on the show, when say, for instance, we got to a particular scene when they brought the slaves out to be sold, it was a bit uncomfortable in the room because, you're not used to dealing with that every day. But the director and the artistic staff, everybody, made it was a safe place in the room so you could talk about those issues. And then, at the end of the day, yes, it is our job to tell the story. But if once you know that you are in a safe place and everybody in this room, we all have the same goal in mind, then you go on about your business as an actor, and you do the job and you tell the story.
And our director, Gabe Barry, is the most gracious human being on the face of the earth. He is kind and patient and never raised his voice or had any kind of artistic flair up in the room. So he really created the space for the conversation between the actors, and now the actors have created the ability for the audiences to have the conversation. And I can tell you, on any given night, you can show up at the theater. It's a very diverse audience, and people are crying, and people are speaking to each other, and it is really a perfect moment in time for this musical. Yeah. We didn't plan it that way. It's one of those divine interventions that our show is opened at this period in time when people really need to have this conversation. I can't believe we're in 2015 and we're still saying this, but we are.
Right. So has there been anything bad from critics or audience members that have come in at all? You get hate mail? Do you get, I mean...
Not hate mail.
I haven't gotten any hate mail.
You know.
At the stage show every night, people are just so inspired. I think that's what it always comes down to at the end. No one's disagreeing with anything that's happening. They're just moved in a way, and that's we've done exactly what we sought out to do is move these people in a way that's like, oh my goodness, this really happened.
Yeah.
You know, how can I look at myself in the mirror and do better? Just generally do better. That's kind of how I've...
Yeah, I think some of the New York cynical critics can't really embrace the fact that people are feeling things, but isn't that why you go to the theater? Don't you want to feel something? I mean, it's an expensive ticket.
Yeah.
I hope you want to do more than just be entertained. And this is very entertaining, but it also makes you feel something. And
Makes you think.
yeah, it makes you really think. But you will also leave having had a great experience.
That's true.
You know, but one of the critics from some offshoot magazine said that we planted people to stand. And I can tell you that every night...
During the curtain call?
Yeah. I mean, is that possible? You were there.
Yeah.
Yeah, people just jump to their feet.
Yeah.
It happens every night. They just couldn't believe it. They didn't want to believe that it happens. What?
I know for me. But
There's a lot of feelings.
Well, they don't even know next to them. It's
But you
it's
can be
amazing.
alone if you want. You know, if you want your private space.
But it's amazing.
Yeah, because you do sort of an audience sing-along, I guess,
It is.
with
Well,
Amazing
we
Grace.
didn't
Yeah.
plan it that way. But in Chicago, when it happened, we were like, wow. And then I said to our director and writer, I said, you know, maybe when we come to New York, we need to revisit this. Let's like put it on hold and see what happens. And so we watched, and the first couple of nights, same thing. We're like, okay, go.
If
Well,
people
there's
like
so
singing
few
it.
songs that it used to be such a cultural thing. It was in society, everyone kind of knew the same songs. It was something that you did together, but that's phased out so much. But it's Happy Birthday and Amazing Grace. I mean, people, you know, those are the songs we know. And so it's exciting. You're like, I know this song. And I'm feeling so much. Like, I can sing it.
That's funny. Yeah, so audience, if you guys have any questions, there's two mics in the aisles for you to ask. Feel free to come up anytime. So Vince, John Newton, I would like to play him. Do I need big biceps?
No, that's not the represent. No,
Okay.
no.
But it's not a bad trait.
How demanding is the role of John Newton? Like, he's in every scene. He's all over the place. He's like getting tied up or beaten or jumping around. Yeah.
I've always approached the theater business or acting business in the way that you would kind of. I'm from a big sports background, and you know.
Obviously. Yeah.
If you can't tell already. No, but it's true. You have to have your body and be mentally sharp at all times, and that's for I think for anything that I personally want to be successful for. I just want to be at my best. The role of John Newton is a lot. It's vocally tiring one as well as physically tiring. You're getting beat. There's all sorts of explosions, fights. So you have to be in as best shape as you personally can. And I feel the most comfortable being in the shape that I'm in. So for any show, it doesn't have to be this one but yeah.
Vince was also in Rocky, so thus the biceps.
Okay. It all comes full circle now. Well, what have you enjoyed about playing John Newton versus other characters?
He's a terrible guy. in the beginning of the play, it's the arrogance and flair that you could have being someone is just I'm totally not John Newton in my normal life. So to be able to do that, to do the role and just have like a humongous transformation going from act 1 to act 2 and seeing what you've done in like the past, you know, however many years in the play it is. Mm-hmm. Just having that reconciliation with oneself and the redemption that it goes through. He's the most difficult person I've ever played, and I think there's so much beauty in the fact that there's this man who is so wretched and awful, who comes literally full circle to, you know, to help start the abolitionist movement. You know, someone who is the son of a slave trader. You know, and it's just a very complicated person. And as an actor, it's like, you know, you've like fallen a gold mine. You know, you're just, of course, you do something that moves people in some sort of way, and I think that's who John Newton is, and it's fun.
Huh. Yeah. Question.
Yes. Thank you for coming to Google, and thank you for that excellent performance. I really want to see the play.
Come see the play.
And then you've already answered my question, but I'm curious for the other actors, what types of roles or characters have you played in the past which prepared you for the role you're currently playing? Just for people who haven't seen the musical yet, sort of like what are similar characters to those you're currently playing?
I have to say that before we did the production in Chicago, I had done South Pacific at 2 different theaters last year, and I played Nellie. And a huge, the end of Act 1 of South Pacific is it being revealed that Nellie is racist, that she has been taught certain things. She grew up in Little Rock, Arkansas, and it's 1940s, and she does not see the Polynesians that she meets in the South Pacific as being equals, and it's a very dark place to go as an actor. But it was very helpful to me as I started this, because that is where these people are. Mary begins there. John begins there. They do not believe that these people are equals, and that is the realization they make. Thank God. But for me, that was very helpful, was to kind of have stepped in those shoes before, and very different circumstances, but similar human issues. So for me, that was helpful.
Yeah, I feel like majority of my career I've been leading up to playing this role of Nana that I based off of my grandmother. I played a number of maids and slaves throughout my life, but I also had the opportunity to play Ida B. Wells, who was a trailblazer in the civil rights movement, who started the anti-lynching campaign. So the spirit of Ida B. Wells fused with my grandmother, who worked as a maid for majority of her adult life, really prepared me for this role. Yeah, to give a voice to all the nanas out in the world that don't have the voice, you know.
I think whether it's playing this role or I did John and Miss Saigon or any other role, is first and foremost is staying up on your craft. Continuing to work on your voice lessons, maybe an acting class here or there, some physical movement. And then after that, this story, this play being based on a true story, as was Saigon, for some reason for me, when there's real truth there, basically, and you've done the research as the director had us do, then you just take all that information and you go with it. So that's what works for me is the research and basically staying up on your craft.
You mentioned the research earlier too. What kind of research did the director have you do to prepare for the show? I mean, you just went off and picked something to learn about?
No.
But he actually gave us like assignments. We kind of got like homework assignments.
Huh.
For the first day of rehearsal.
30 assignments, so you got to hear everyone.
Yeah.
2 full days of rehearsal.
I mean, everything from authentic, like the dance of the period in Sierra Leone, the dance of the period in England, the Christmas celebrations in England. Yeah, sports.
How sailors were on the ships,
the
their
Navy,
living quarters. There was
the war.
33 different assignments, and we spent 2 days, 8 hours a day, just sitting in a huge room, learning so much about each other. And
wow.
homework assignment.
That's crazy. Yeah, question.
Is the entire play set in 1744, or does it cover some of the later periods of his life?
We compress his story into 2 years because truly John Newton didn't write Amazing Grace till much later in his life. So we sort of compress his life into 2 years. So historically not exactly accurate,
Okay.
because that fight took 20 years.
Well, it took till, 1840s?
Yes,
And
yeah.
Wilberforce
Yeah.
helping to finish.
Well, he was Wilberforce's mentor.
Yeah, I knew that.
Yeah.
The other question is, when you were thinking about this, you reminded me of another play with another nasty slave trader who converts in The Mission. Did you think at all about that?
No, but that's a beautiful movie. It's a gorgeous movie with a gorgeous score. Really beautiful.
Huh. So Erin, along with along with the other topics that, of course, we've been talking about, like the role of Mary Catlett is that of a strong woman in a time when women were not supposed to be that way. Yeah. So, like, how did you find this proper balance of being the demure single woman, which, of course, being single at an older, I don't even know how old she's supposed to be, actually.
In the show, she's 18, 19. I mean, she's like prime time.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's like very marrying age, right?
Yeah.
Like, so was that difficult to find that balance between, like, playing a character that people were supposed to expect a certain way versus actually, like, finding inner strength for this character?
That's what's been probably my favorite thing about Mary and playing her is the fact that she is so progressive at a time where she had no rights, really. I mean, she didn't. And she's speaking up for people who have no voice, and she has no power. I mean, you know, she's finding ways to assert power in a society that she does not have many ways. And she's willing to die for it. I mean, it's definitely, you know, she's working within her society. She's working within her conditions. So she's, you know, I mean, she's kind of playing the game sometimes, but she's trying to use it to her advantage and use it to make a difference in her society. So that's one of my favorite things about Mary is that what you just said, is that obstacle, is that just back and forth for her. And that struggle, and that she decides that, you know, I know what I'm supposed to do. I know what society tells me to do, but it's not right, and I can't stand for it anymore. Even
against advice from your nana, who's like, don't do it, don't rock the boat, like everything's good. Don't get involved. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Question.
Hi. Thank you for coming. I'm a big Broadway fan. So my question is, what is something like memorable or profound that someone has said to you at stage door or something?
Oh, good one.
Real recently, before someone else takes this, the other day there was a woman from Sierra Leone who was at the show. And part of our show is based in Sierra Leone. And her name was Yima, as is one of the characters in the show. So when things like that happen, it's like that happened, and then on Sunday afternoon, a lot of times when we're singing the last chorus of Amazing Grace, when people just one at a time just get up and start, and it makes you cry on stage, those are some of the most memorable moments for me.
I think the most memorable for me was having a conversation with my nephew, who just completed his first year at Hampton University. So he comes, and he's staying with me for the summer. And he was at the opening night, and we had a conversation the next morning. And I said, so Jay, what did you think about the show? And he was like, Auntie, to be honest with you, I am still processing. That was a lot of information. I was deeply moved, and I'm still processing. It shook me. And I thought it was beautiful that he articulated that and that he is processing, and I think that's the point of this show. You know, theater has to be reachable, and it's not going to always be comfortable. I'm extremely uncomfortable playing this role, but I know that's what I'm supposed to be, you know, in order for this piece of art to reach.
I produced a lot of musicals, but I've never produced a musical where people will come up to you and say, thank you for doing this. It was almost like, you know, a movement or something. You know, thank you for stepping out. And I mean, it's a high risk. You know, you are in the business of, you know, following trends, and you know, we're bucking a big trend, and it's a high risk, but it's really a valuable risk. And I think the appreciation from the audience to the actors, and as well to me, has been so unusual.
Yeah, so Laiona, congrats on your Broadway debut, by the way. Yeah. Yeah, wonderful. But you mentioned that your character makes you feel uncomfortable, which is, I guess, a good thing. But like all of you, I guess this question goes out for all of you, that you have to do this powerful, emotional, like heartbreak, bring yourself into this heartbreak 8 times a week. Yeah. Like, is that difficult for you to go through this? I mean, like, it seemed the show I watched was one show, and I felt like you put everything you had into this one moment.
They really do.
I mean, like, how...
I watch a lot of really crappy reality TV to just like totally turn.
Yes, you do.
Like you gotta totally separate for a while. And I'm like, all right, give me some.
Right.
A lot of Bachelorette going on, which is over.
Don't spoil it. I haven't watched it yet.
I don't watch The Bachelorette.
But I mean, yeah, you do. You do. You just have to. It's part of being an actor. It's part of doing, many shows, and this is definitely one of them. Where
And their whole weekend, Friday to Saturday, one Sunday, it's kind of Sunday night is a wipeout.
Yeah.
And then Monday is a regrouping. And then here's Tuesday, and they start tonight and go through next Sunday.
Yep.
It's a heavy job. It's heavy lifting 8 times.
Wow.
yeah.
I mean, as it is a heavy job, but I think the other thing too is we all got into this for a reason, and the fact, like, for me personally, you work so hard to get to Broadway because that's the pinnacle, it's the top, and once you're there, you just want to make the most of the fact that you're there, and it's we're so privileged to do 8 shows a week. I've also shoveled for 12 hours a day, and I really like doing plays. And stuff.
Should I ask what you were shoveling?
I work construction, so it's like.
So literally shoving shit or metaphorically shoving shit?
Yeah, the both.
Yes, question.
Hi, yeah. This goes along with what you just asked. Since you're doing the same role every night, I have a couple different parts of this question. But since you're doing the same role every night, at what point do you feel, I guess, comfortable enough to say, tonight I'm just going to try something crazy for this part? And can you talk about an experience that you've had where you're like, I'm just going to do something a little bit different in this aspect of maybe the play, and how it worked out, and how, if it worked or different, or if it didn't work, or how it changed, like, you're continuing on with the play, or, if that makes sense.
I mean, yeah, definitely. There certainly are limitations as to how much changes we can make once we've opened the show. Once the show is what we call frozen. So the show is set in terms of pretty much where we're going to be moving, because you don't want to throw, you've got set pieces moving, you've got other people on stage.
It's all automated, so you can, like, the hydraulics will take an arm off. Yeah.
We have people calling the cues. But yeah, you do have to, there has to be a sense of consistency. But within that, we try new stuff every day. We listen to each other, and we imagine that we're in that moment, and we know the circumstances, and we know the places we need to get to. But the way we get there every night is a little bit different. Every single night, depending what's happened in our day. That affects me.
So much that way. Oh, sure. You want to speak on that?
Hi, I'm Dan. I'm in the pit, playing second keyboard.
Hey.
And being from where I am, it's a very flexible show. It has a breadth and an immediacy. There are a lot of shows now that are to click tracks throughout the entire production, so everything is kind of forced on a routine. And there are only 2 spots in this whole show that are click tracked, and it's for very specific safety reasons because of mechanical things going on stage. But we have an all-acoustic pit, so we're very present, as opposed to some shows where they're in like completely different floors or different buildings. I'm not using any sort of headphones or everything. Everything is very live, immediate, and that allows the conductor and in turn the orchestra to be very responsive to the impulses on stage. And I can attest, every day the tempos shift slightly based on the energy, based on the audience, and it's a relatively intimate house. We have 1162. As opposed to some of the other theaters with 3 different balcony levels, and it really allows for a unique performance every day.
Wow. Yeah, so we are out of time here already, but in closing, is there anything specific? We've talked about it. I was going to say, is there anything you want people to come away from with the show? But like having conversations and bringing things to the forefront of their minds, and just, I guess, not ignoring problems is what this show like I guess in my opinion, one of the underlying message of this whole show. So I applaud you guys for doing this 8 times a week, putting yourself into it. God, like you guys are just amazing. Everybody go see this Amazing Grace at the Nederlander Theater, 208 West 41st Street between 7th and 8th. AmazingGraceMusical.com. Please give them a round of applause.